Hi, everyone. I am Kelly Wolf with the Kentucky Chamber and the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. Our apologies for our technical difficulties this morning. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Kentucky had just a little bit of ice over the last couple of days. So we're a solid sheet of ice and thankful that I have some power and internet connection. So I won't dally too much longer. I just wanted to apologize for the delay. Today we're going to discuss strategic planning for your foundation. I'm going to walk you through a planning tool that we use at the Chambers Foundation as well as our chamber. So let me share my screen here so you can see the PowerPoint. And Crystal, let me know if you cannot see this. Can everyone see that? I'm assuming Crystal can see this. If I don't hear anything, I will just keep going. All right. Okay, so we'll just dive right in. One of the first things I would say, and I like to start off with, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. A quote from Benjamin Franklin. I fully believe in this statement. If you remember one thing from today, remember that your strategic plan is your roadmap for success. If it's not on your plan, it's not important. Oh, sorry, not there yet. Your chamber has a strategic direction, and your foundation is an arm of your chamber that provides you with a tool to directly impact your community work. Your strategic plan should intentionally align with your chamber. Without the strategic direction, your chamber is basically, or foundation is basically flying blind. If you read what's your game plan, you would know the quote from the CEO that's like the pilot with the good news, bad news story. The bad news, he says to the passengers, is we don't know where we are nor which direction we are headed. The good news is we're making excellent speed to get there. They just obviously all need a flight pattern to get us to our destination. And our strategic plan is our flight pattern. So as we're developing the strategic direction for the foundation, there are 4 fundamental reasons why strategic planning is not just necessary, but essential. It allows you to recognize the need for and to manage change. It compels you to focus on the long-term strategy. It helps you keep a competitive advantage, and it gives your team a basis for identifying with your organization. All your team members will have an active role in the implementation of your strategic plan, and they'll all be on the same page for where, how, and why your foundation is doing what it's doing. So in the end, it really doesn't matter how you do your strategic plan. It just matters that you do it. I can't believe I'm going to quote Mark Wilson with the Florida Chamber. However, I think one of the first things he said to me was, if you've seen one chamber, you've seen one chamber. That is really applicable to these strategic planning sessions. I think it's all individual to your individual organizations. But I know that, in Casey's previous presentation with foundations, you heard a lot about working the plan. So today we're going to talk about a tool that will help you work your plan and measure your results. So just a quick story on the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. You'll see on this chart, from 2005 to about 2018, the Chambers Foundation was basically a pass-through organization, and without an intentional strategy or work. We had a couple of foundations that wanted to support some of our research work, and a program that we had created about 10 years ago that basically generated from about $400,000 to $800,000 annually. But really it was just a pass-through organization without a real clear direction or even kind of the bandwidth to be able to do what we needed to do in our foundation. So in 2018, we created our first strategic plan for our foundation. And if you see on that chart from 2018 to 2020, we've grown significantly, not only in revenue, but from the programmatic work that it allowed us to do to support our chamber. So it allowed us to have the ability to quickly pivot, like a lot of you had to do during COVID. So just to give you a snapshot of how the Kentucky Chamber Foundation looks with our structure, the executive committee of the Kentucky Chamber appoints a foundation chairman. And the work is reported directly up through the Kentucky Chamber Board. So our foundation board made the strategic decision to engage in some public-private partnerships with the state government on workforce initiatives specifically. That kind of led us to the creation of, you will see there, those SMLLCs, which is single member limited liability corporations. It kind of gave us an extra layer of protection, we felt, as we were working with some public money. So these organizations, these were created because of the strategic direction that was developed by the foundation. And they allow we had to make some organizational changes and adjustments so that we could fully focus on these goals and strategies that are outlined in our strategic plan. The result, obviously, was increased revenue that mirrors the strategic direction of the Kentucky Chamber. So again, not focusing so much on the Chamber's foundation per se, but just kind of wanted to give you a snapshot of kind of how we look and how we looked previously before we developed our strategic plan. So now I'm going to go into just a little bit on some details of how we developed our plan. We utilize what we call OGSM. This OGSM framework was developed in Japan in the 1950s. It was brought from Japan and adopted by a lot of companies, specifically Procter & Gamble. And you'll see on the top of this slide, this is really Procter & Gamble's work. So they're credited for developing this modern version of the OGSM, which makes it a little more manageable and easy to use for us. It's just a way to define what you want to achieve, how you want to get there, and just, this process starts from the top and is completely inclusive of your entire team. So one of the 4 fundamental reasons that we talked about just a few minutes ago is why a plan is necessary. I'm going to go into deeper in just a few minutes, but as you can see in this quick overview, O is for your objective, for what you need to achieve and how it ties directly to the overall mission of your organization. G, the goals or the quantitative targets of progress that lead you right back to your objective. And the objective and goals are the what. It's what success looks like for your foundation or for your chamber. Then next in line, you will see strategies. Strategies is how you're going to achieve that objective and goal. M is to measure your numerical target, or you can also use a dashboard of the progress of your strategies. So really the strategies and the measures are the how you're going to achieve your goals. So you have the O and the G is the objective and goal on what you're going to achieve, and your strategy and measurements are how you're going to achieve those. So again, I'm going to dive in just a little deeper and just kind of walk you through kind of how we develop this OGSM model. So when we talk about objectives, it's a specific purpose and it directly relates back to the mission of your organization. And typically, you only want 3 to 5 initiatives, and they need to be pretty simple. Usually, it'll be in the form of a sentence, no more than I would say 2 to 3 year time frame. 5 is kind of pushing it just a little bit. But it's basically what you need to do, and to fulfill your organization's mission. Typically, these objectives are in the form of words, not numbers. So basically, what does success look like for your foundation? So for example, our foundation, the objective may be to strengthen the financial position of the foundation through diverse and impactful revenue streams. That's a pretty broad statement. Obviously, it's a huge objective, I would say, for most foundations. So I'm just going to try to give you an example as we go through this entire document. Next is your G, which is your goals. So your specific outcome that you're looking for, and it's typically going to be what you need to, well, it's always going to be what you need to reach your objectives. And it's a numerical target. So when I said before, strengthen the financial position of the foundation through diverse and impactful revenue streams. Now my goal, I may say, we're going to reach $1 million in new program revenue in 2021 would be a goal that would support, a numerical goal that's going to support our strategy, or sorry, our objective. So in these goals, we really like to utilize SMART goals, which you will see outlined here, very specific, measurable, actionable, attainable, results oriented. And again, numbers, dates, all that good stuff. What does success look like? Next one, strategies. So when the objective and goals have been composed, the next step is to describe how the goals will be realized. So the strategies used for this purpose, it's important that a strategy is determined for each one of your goals. And you may have several strategies. It could be 3 to 4 strategies that will support your one goal. And again, I'm going to show you a great pictorial of this in just a few minutes after we get through OGSM. So you want to make sure to make specific decisions and decide what is or what's not a strategy. So for example, when we go back to the Chamber's objective of strengthening the financial position of the foundation through diverse and impactful revenue streams, and our goal would be to reach $1 million in new revenue in 2021, I may have a strategy to request introductions to current funders that may have a similar focus on programmatic work, such as racial inequality or workforce initiatives or those types of things. And so that would be in support of your goal. And of course, we always want to measure everything we do. So I would say that the goal of the OGSM framework is to make it easier for management to track progress for some of these ambitious objectives. And progress can only be managed when it's been determined in advance on how you're going to monitor it. And, I think working in the chamber industry for the past 16 years has taught me quite a bit about making sure that we are measuring everything that we do. So as we went back to our examples of the $1 million in new program revenue, and how am I going to measure that? Well, I'm going to measure that obviously if I reach my financial goal, but also there can be some additional measurements like reaching 2 potential new funders in 2021 or those types of things. So it's basically what gets measured when it gets done. And it's how we will know if we've reached success in OGSM and in your full strategic direction. So once you've done all the hard work and you've input all your information, and again, the next slide, I'm going to show you this full example. It's time for your execution. And you're going to notice on our sample that we also provide a champion for each item, each objective, strategy, goal that we outline, we make sure that there's one person that is really in charge and in the champion of that specific goal or strategy. And it gives your team an opportunity to make sure that everyone has some involvement. But the biggest issue here is, a lot of times execution doesn't happen. You'll see several examples of why on this slide, but 95% of a company's employees are unaware, or they simply don't understand your organization's strategy. So, and of course, my favorite, especially in the world of chamber and chamber work, is today's leaders have 3 times more direct reports than it did 10 years ago. So that was pretty telling. So this, again, I promised I was going to show you kind of what this looks like in its finished form, and you will see your objectives. So, and these aren't real by any means. I've just made things up for this presentation. So let's say strengthen the Kentucky Chamber Foundation's reputation as the nonprofit 501c3 entity with authentic business engagement connections for philanthropy in Kentucky. So we want to be known as the foundation for programmatic business work in Kentucky. And so to get to that, we need to increase our visibility. So I'm going to go to my goals and we're going to increase visibility, and I would need to put a number in here by 20% of the Kentucky Chamber Foundation among Kentucky-based foundations and philanthropic leaders. How am I going to do that? We're going to work with some long-term funders to generate some success stories that they would be willing to maybe feature in an annual publication. We're going to give this a champion, which in this case we'll call her Beth, and then we will measure. We want to publish at least 2 stories on a statewide level. And then you will notice, as we talked about before, you will have more than one strategy in order to achieve your goal. So we would want to participate in some additional conferences like the Kentucky Philanthropic Summit, or funding groups with neighboring states. And we would assign that specific champion would be Amy. And she's going to measure her success, she'll be identifying 2 events. So not only does this form work so well to create your strategic direction and objective based on the mission of your organization, it's also going to serve as your business plan to take you through the next several years, 2 to 3 years of your organization, and being able to measure that success. So that is really just, again, a quick snapshot of how we develop our strategic plan, not only for the Kentucky Chamber Foundation, but for the Kentucky Chamber as well. We have utilized this form and it has been so well received, and you can see that we have been able to measure some pretty significant success with the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. So that will conclude my presentation on OGSM, and I am happy to answer some questions and to talk through this in any more detail that you would like. Crystal? Did I lose her?
I am here. Nope, I'm here. I just needed to unmute myself.
No problem.
I think we do have a couple of questions. Zach Snyder, I'm going to call on you because you have your hand up. You need to unmute yourself. Zach, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure you weren't going to just read it off, or you wanted me to actually say it.
Yes.
So thanks for the great info, Kelly. And I asked it in the chat as well, but I guess what was the reason, or what was the trigger for you to really go from kind of staying on the trail you were on to that big switch in 2018? Was there a major need that you uncovered, or, you know, finally starting to make a strategic plan where you needed to hit X number of revenue or something like that. So just curious.
Yes, I will tell you one thing that I probably didn't mention, and I would be remiss if I didn't. Just to make sure that we all are on the same page, budgeting is not a strategic plan. It should not drive the strategic direction of your foundation. So the need for increased revenue was not the reason for our switch. I mean, although every chamber and every foundation wants increased revenue. The big reason for our shift is because as we started just doing more of that pass-through work, we really were able to identify a need that the business community had for some additional programmatic work in the area of workforce, in the area of leadership, in the area of racial inequalities, and criminal justice reform. So as we started looking at a lot of those initiatives through our chamber, we were able to identify that we could raise significantly more money to develop programmatic work through our foundation, and it opened an entire new revenue stream for us. You know, typically you're looking at your corporations to generate the revenue that you need for our organizations, and with our foundation, we were really able to broaden our level of work and incorporate more programmatic work, which is not something a state chamber typically does. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I have a follow-up one, but I don't want to take anyone else's time. So if we could,
No,
you
go
want to come
ahead.
back? Okay,
No,
cool.
no, go
Thanks.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
So I guess in that note then too, because this is kind of where I'm running into the potential issue, is that we already do some of those types of things, and they're programs of the chamber. Did you all have to kind of reallocate where those dollars went, or because we have our regular 501c6 and then the C3, but it's really only used for a couple of different things. But I foresee a lot of the work that we currently do addresses kind of like the racial inequality things. And if we do put that more intentionally, do we then kind of readjust where those dollars are, you know, put them under the foundation specifically? And I'm just curious.
I think one of the benefits of having the 501c3 that's working directly in conjunction with your C6 is that C6 is really driving your overall strategic initiative. The C3 can really be a support arm, and you can be very intentional on the type of money that you are looking to raise. And again, it opens up a new revenue stream. So I'm not sure how you were paying for the work in racial inequality before, but it is something that you can look to other C3s to help you with some of that funding. And so it doesn't mean the work is not done by your chamber. The Kentucky Chamber does not have a single foundation employee. We are all employees of the Kentucky Chamber. So although the work and the initiative is done through our foundation, it's a way to help us. It also helps us open additional philanthropy doors that we couldn't through our C6.
Mm-hmm.
I see. That helps a lot. Thank you.
And Kelly, I want to add just a little bit to that. ACCE's foundation, it's never too late to do a strategic plan. ACCE's foundation, we were already at 2 million, 2.5 million before we decided to do a strategic plan. And the other thing, and the other thing that strategic plans help you with is it guides you in terms of the work, because all money isn't good money. And you have to have some kind of strategic focus, which is the C6, and work in tandem with your C6 to get the work done. A lot of times when we think about additional resources, we think immediately to dollars, where it can also be bodies. It can be contract work. It could be, products and programs. It doesn't have to be like this bottom line dollar amount that you're trying to secure. And that speaks to your point, Kelly, about money and should not drive your strategic plan for your C3.
No, absolutely. And you're right, Crystal. I mean, we were almost at $1 million when, we finally were able to, focus and develop a strategic plan for our foundation. But again, back to your point, Crystal, it really works in tandem with the direction of our chamber. So, happy to take any other questions.
I think that's it in terms of direct questions on the webinar. If I get any questions via my email, seymour@acce.org, I will forward them to Kelly. And also keep in mind that we have some other resources available on acce.org related to foundations. This is a whole series. And don't forget to also check out our bookstore because we have a new product on GAAP revenue regulations, which a lot of C6 and C3s need to pay attention to because the regulations have changed in terms of how you recognize your revenue. And then also attached to this, and if you look at your panel, there's a handout kind of cell. And if you click on that handout cell, you'll see a sample that Kelly provided with this process. And then you'll also see a PowerPoint presentation that Casey Steinbacher did for us last year that is part of this whole series. We have recorded this and we will send a recording along with resource docs to everyone who signed up for it. So if you have a colleague that signed up and couldn't make it, we'll make sure because they registered for it that they will get the information. And Kelly, as always, thank you so much for your wisdom, and we look forward to working with you again soon.
Happy to help anytime. Thanks so much, Crystal.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.